Hakim, and
Oh man.
welcome, buddy. I'm really excited about you starting your journey into arbitrage and to the property journey. So let's start off by why you want to do this and what's your motivation. And tell us firstly, tell us your name, tell us where you're from, where you're based. Tell us a bit of about your background and things like that, um, and then how you found yourself on this call and why you want to or do this program.
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, my name is Z. It's Hakeem, but I go by Z. Zach is my middle name, so it just really different preferences. My background is actually in retail, so I used to do like we had basically a small business, and we do consulting. We did a lot of different things, so we did that for almost a decade. And then just different journeys. Why I actually wanted to get into the Airbnb field is when I was in Florida, I actually found myself consistently like going to hotels and consistently trying to find, and some prices were just going just through the roofs. And the Airbnb, I actually started looking into Airbnbs and I started booking them, and it was a lot more affordable. And then not only that, I feel like it just helped both sides where, they're making good money. I was, um, it just was a business opportunity, a business thing that just came off of just trying to find, for example, if I was in Fort Lauderdale, I needed somewhere, I would find it. And sometimes they would be overbooked. And I was like, oh my goodness. And it was just a feeling I was like, okay, so if it's overbooked, it's a good business. And honestly, it was always in my head. I just didn't know where to start. Because starting on your own without the guidance, oh, okay, perfect. So yeah, when you're starting without guidance in anything, like even we actually had a franchise, so it would have made it a lot tough, but that guidance made it where it's a lot easier. So I definitely wanted that. And then how I found Bryn is actually his ads. Honestly, he just did guerrilla marketing, and you could just feel who's legit and who's not legit, because there's a lot of, especially social media, there's a lot of people who are not legit at all. But we booked a call. The first call, I think I was super busy, and then the next call I was actually at the doctor's office, and then we spoke for a good 20 minutes, and Bryn definitely told me everything I needed to know. And he wasn't those kind of guys that just tell you what you want to hear. No, he'll tell you exactly what you need to know, and the experience, and I actually appreciate that. The experience it makes our lives easier, especially starting out. So I'm definitely excited for the journey.
Awesome, and I'm excited to work with you and make this dream a reality of yours, which is great. Um, as you know, with everything, right? And it has to be hard before it gets easy.
Yeah, I
And
know.
and from the beginning, I've told you that that it was going to be hard at the beginning, and then it would be easier. And the reason why is actually it's a brain function. And so, as you know, I've studied neuroscience for the last 10 years, and I wrote a book. And part of the community, there is a free download for you, and you get my course on how to rewrite your brain in 56 days, how to rewire your brain in 56 days by mastering your mindset. And you can go over to the community courses there, download the link, and actually do all the video tutorials and training. And that helps you change the way that you see and your perception, etc. So what happens is, when you are learning something new, you use a structure in your brain just above your forehead called the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is responsible for your reasoning, your decision making, etc. And it consumes a lot of energy. And so the brain doesn't like it to do that, which is why it makes it feel like it's harder. And until the brain is able to create new neural pathways, to create a program, if we can call it that, where it knows what to expect, it will then it will create this feeling of overwhelm. So the idea is that while you're going along this, you're going to come across obstacles that are going to challenge you to make them feel hard. okay, or they will start feeling hard. And when the brain eventually changes what we call the baseline, it gets used to what you're doing. And that's why the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But at the beginning, it's got to create a whole new set of neural pathways that it can wire so that you are basically creating a new skill, learning a new program. You're programming your brain how to do this. And that's why it seems incredibly hard at the beginning. So the main thing about all of this is mindset. And so while you're here and while we're doing this together, I'm going to be pushing you on your mindset and keeping you, holding you accountable and motivating you to keep on the path, because it is at times going to be tough. And it's not tough because you can't do it. It's tough because you're creating new neural pathways in your brain that have you think, feel, and act in a different way. But the more you do it and the more you go through it, the more the brain then creates those neural pathways and then creates an automated program that makes you feel more and more comfortable as you go along, that eventually changes the baseline and says, right, this is the new norm. So it has to be tough before it gets easy. You with me?
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
It's tough working a 9 to 5, so this is definitely worth the toughness. Do it for yourself.
It's going to be, I promise you, everybody goes through the same metrics, and this is why a lot of people don't do it, is because you're going to feel like there's times that you want to give up. You're going to feel fear because of failure. You're going to feel all those metrics. But if you follow this and down to the T and you stick to the timelines and we work together, whenever you're feeling a bit tough, you reach out into the community and you ask a couple of questions. I'm in the community chat there for you all the time to be able to answer any questions you might have. Okay, as well as we have this, this arbitrage course to get you from zero to hero, to be able to get you your first deal up and running. And then once that's done, we work on the next one and then the next one. And then you carry on going to eventually working into my scaling program, which is where you become a property mogul. Okay, so the first part of this is mindset. We've got to get your mindset to know that there is no such thing as fail. It is only hard. Okay, and so that's the main thing that we need to chat about today is mindset. All right, knowing that when it's hard, to understand why it's hard, because the brain doesn't like you to go out of your comfort zone. The first part of the brain when you are born is called the brain stem. It looks like this, and it looks like a cobra. That's why they call it the reptilian brain. And the base program of the brain is reproduction and survival. And so whenever you're always looking through that lens of reproduction or survival. And if you're doing something where the brain cannot predict survival, it doesn't like it. And so it doesn't want you to be trying to be conscious and to try and create your own version of the program, because it cannot predict the survival using the past information that it has built up through the years. And that's why it always seems so hard, because the brain is constantly trying to push you back into a place where it can predict survival. Because if you're using your prefrontal cortex, as we were talking about, to create new programs, you're burning a lot of energy. And then if that energy is not available for the body and the brain, then the brain cannot predict survival, and it doesn't like that. So that it uses what we call the default mode network, and it's a network in the brain that uses all of our past conditioning and programming in order to try and save us from the lion, the tiger, and the bear. Oh my, because it knows how much energy consumption it can use and facilitate. So that's the key thing to understanding that it's going to be hard, but we're going to work through that and know that it's your brain, it's not you. Okay, the fear is natural. Now, what does every single human in the world fear?
Maybe their failure. I don't know. They're uncomfortable. A lot of people deal with different things, but I think, yeah, it's fear.
Every single human in the world fears the dark. Now, there are some that say, but I'm not scared of the dark. Now, if I put you in a lion camp in Africa, I promise you're going to be scared of the dark.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it's the unknown. So the brain, because it cannot predict survival, fears the unknown. So this, going into this project, it will feel like it's the unknown, and the brain will be giving you a lot of messages saying that it doesn't like it. And that's why we're going to keep you on track with mindset and with accountability. And those who are following along as well, I want you to know this so that you already expect it. So when you do have these obstacles, that you don't just give up and go, oh, it's about me. It has nothing to do with you. It's the way the brain is actually designed. At least you now know this. Do you have any questions?
No, I think you hit it on the head, so I respect it.
Okay, so let's get ready and let's start today's first session. So what do you think the most important factor is? What is the most important factor when we start this business? What do you think it would be?
Location and location.
Location. Okay, that's the most important. And why would it be the most important?
The bookings, just if you put it in the middle of nowhere, it's going to be harder for people to get there, and it'll be less desirable.
Okay, so what do you think what's the number one thing that we need to check first when it comes to location?
The first thing we need to check, the small research that I did, if they're able to do Airbnb, if how many other places that is around. For example, if I choose a place like downtown, how many is in the perimeter that's close, to see how many competition that I have will make me different, stuff like that is what I'm guessing.
Perfect. You're pretty much there. And first one is legislation in an area. So what we say, well, you know, you're in the United States, so there's many different areas. So what we need to do is, how do you check all the areas? Now, I'm going to put a sheet in to the course section here that is complimentary of a company called HostEasy. They're a co-hosting company using AI, and they've got a list of all the different areas and the legislation kind of strict or lenient in different areas so that you can work off that. But what we need to do is, instead of trying to search every single area, because there's so many of them, we have to choose 3 to begin with. So grab a pen and paper and write down these specific things, okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to choose 3 areas. Now, how do we choose those 3 areas? What do you think is the best way for us to choose an area?
What is the best way to choose an area?
Yeah, so we're going to choose 3 areas, okay? And then we're going to find out whether the legislation allows for rentals, short-term rentals in those areas, as well as some of the other factors we're going to talk about now. But we need to choose 3 areas first. And then if those 3 areas don't work, then we'll try to find another 3 areas. Okay, so but the first way is we need to, instead of trying to look in too many different places because it will become overwhelming, okay, we need to first choose 3 areas, spend time on that to try and find the information that we need in those 3 areas, and if they will or won't work for us. Okay, now, what do you think we're looking for in terms of how do we choose an area?
So in general, like what cities what cities do I do, or just what
are the factors? Yeah, what are the factors that do you think we should be looking for?
More than likely the tourism.
Tourism, definitely. Why is tourism so important?
Because I think that's the bread and butter of the hospitality industry. So a lot 100%. Of hotels.
And we want, besides legislation, obviously, we want traffic all year round. We do not want a place that is seasonal, because otherwise you are going to have these massive highs and these massive lows. And that is inconsistent. We want consistent monthly revenue so that we can work with stability for the company. And that way we can predict and we can grow. When we're dealing with inconsistent revenues, it makes it very, very, very difficult especially with arbitrage as well, because obviously you have a fixed cost every single month, which is the rent of a property that you're going to do arbitrage on, and you're going to have to pay that consistently with no questions asked. So if you have a constant fluctuation of bookings because it's not consistent, it's going to put you under financial pressure, and that's not what this is for. Yeah. So tourism is one. All year round booking tourism is very, very important. Okay. Obviously, legislation is still there. We've got to find out if legislation allows in a tourist all year round place. So what makes an all round tourist place in the United States?
Theme parks, sometimes different. It could be museums, downtown. I mean, all of downtown, it's basically a hot spot.
Where do people like to go for their summers?
The beaches, for sure.
And where do people like to go for their winters?
Maybe resort, ski, different places, snowboarding places, mountains. It just depends really.
But would they still go to a beach area
in the winter? No,
yes.
I don't think so. Yeah, actually they would, but it wouldn't be maybe as desirable. But I think they still would.
They still go there because of the beautiful views and being near the ocean. The ocean has a very calming effect on people. It's a feminine energy, and so those kind of locations, which are cities and hubs that have either river or but mostly ocean, are always good bets because they have all year round tourists, especially if they're major cities. So we want to look for a major city. We want to look for a sea or ocean that has kind of boardwalks or tourism spots. We want vibey, we want well-known, we want constant flow of traffic because there's other things to do than just go to the beach, and that they're popular for, like your tourism interests, things like that. Those are important. Warm water is also, funny enough, an important factor, because when you're going to the beach, do you want to go swim in the cold water or the warm water? Now, I'm from Cape Town, so our water, we don't have a choice. It's Cape Town, South Africa. We have the sort of the South Pole water coming up, so you have these beautiful beaches and this freezing cold water. But South Africa, because of the exchange rate, is very, very affordable. Okay, so a lot of people come from different parts of the world to come there. So those are some key factors. What other kind of key factors do you think we need to take into consideration?
Besides location, if they're able to do it, to make sure the owners are, because I'm interested in doing the arbitrage, so the owners have to be on the same page. If the rent has to be a good price, the fixed cost. Just using educated guesses,
No, you carry on. There is no wrong or right here, and this is not nobody who is joining this course is going to know all the answers. It's just the whole reason for this course is a starter course for beginners to medium arbitrage who are looking to learn more, to get started ultimately. So it's more catered for the new arbitragers like yourself. And so everybody's going to go through that exact same journey. So you never have to feel, same as the viewers watching this, you never have to feel like any question is not correct and that you don't know what you're doing. Remember, the community chat is there for us to support you and to answer those questions, because those questions need to be answered so that you can feel comfortable. Without them being answered and you just holding them back, you're not going to progress further because you're missing a piece of the information that makes sense to you. And every single person is going to have a piece of information that they need to make sense for them. It's your experience. This is your journey. Okay, so don't worry about, as they would say in the term, don't worry about the ego. Let's be egoless here. There's no point in us worrying about it. We're here to throw good ideas, bad ideas, any idea, it doesn't matter. It's feedback. We do it. We find out how to move forward, and that's it. So we're looking for, firstly, location. We want to know 3 areas at the beginning, okay? And the reason we're choosing 3 is because there's way too many to choose from, okay? But we're going to charge to 3 areas, and then we're going to look for these particular things in the 3 areas first. And then from there, if they don't work, then we'd find another 3 areas. The reason why we're not just finding 1 area is because we want a bigger sample to have a look and compare with. Okay, so the first things that we want to do in the 3 areas, okay, we want to firstly, before we start digging into more information, we want to find out if legislation works. The 3 areas that we're picking are ones that have tourists all year round, pretty much have some sort of, if you are in the center of the USA and don't have any oceans around you, then you need to look for either for major cities, okay? Because major cities are hubs, they're business hubs, they have activity, those kind of things. But if you can, then you're going to look for properties that are near the ocean, but just know that properties near the ocean have higher rents as well. So these are all factors that we're going to have to look at, right? So we want a place that has a steady all year round tourist and business turnover. It's not seasonal. We want all year round steady consistency. We want to be able to know then if the legislation allows for short-term rentals in that area, okay? And then we want to then look at the following aspects. The first one is, how are you going to manage your location? What is the game plan? How are you going to manage the property in your location?
How am I going to manage it? Just using, before I know anything, just like my ideas.
Yeah, just ideas. We're throwing ideas.
Just making sure I have the right team in place, the right cleaners. Make sure I have the right furniture, the right pictures, the right location. And to manage it, I would just through the app and through the cleaners. I think that probably is the hardest thing, and then the replying back to the client, to the customers. So whenever they send me messages, I have the right maybe host in place, or I have the my phone always on ready to answer the questions and get ready for bookings.
So your cleaners are the actual property managers.
Okay.
So, a lot of property management companies go out and sell their services to get on owners, for example. But the actual property managers are the cleaning company. So the cleaning company is probably the most important decision that you're going to have to make. And that is to find the right cleaning company that will be able to follow your procedures, your checklists, and things like that in terms of reporting. And so you're going to always have to monitor them. Now, I would always suggest, wherever possible, is that you want to climb on a plane and be able to get to that location or drive to that location within a short amount of time. You also want to be able to do it in a time zone that is similar to yours. I know some people that do arbitrage in, for example, Thailand or Philippines, and they're in a totally different time zone. So when they're sleeping, it's bustling on the other side, and it does become quite a challenge for them. So they end up having to get co-hosts in those areas, and then only when they wake up can they actually handle any of the challenges. So these are just things that you need to consider. There's no right or wrong. We're going to look at these as we go along. So we're going to choose 3 areas. We're going to choose those 3 areas that we think are best for tourists all year round. We're going to choose ones that are pretty much close to the ocean, so that have long summers, hopefully, not short summers. And then we're going to check if legislation allows the short-term rentals there, because otherwise there's no point in doing it illegally. It does catch up to you. It's just that crazy. You're choosing which areas within those cities are the most popular, okay? And then what we need to do is actually go and check the bedroom configuration of that area and check what's best. So you're going to use a tool like AirDNA, for example, and you're going to then see the nightly prices and rates for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, etc. Because that's what the information we're looking for. We're looking for profit. We're not looking for gross income. We're looking for profit. We're saying that, well, okay, if a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom or 3 bedroom can yield X amount, what is it going to cost me to rent that out plus expenses? And obviously the difference between all of that will be the profit. And we're looking for that profit. Then we're going to build that profit up nicely enough to eventually be able to get another one. And we're going to then scale that business according to that. There are some important factors that we also need to consider. One is a unique selling point. The pictures, the description, and the price, all you need to be unique and competitive, right? And so we need to use tools like AirDNA to find out what the competition is, what they're advertising their prices at. We need to then go onto websites like Zillow, because you're in the States. So I presume you use Zillow. And Zillow will then show you available properties that where there are owners looking for long-term leases. And then we're looking for specific properties that we can see have a unique selling point. Because we want people to see the picture, because it's the first two things that you see are the pictures and the title. And in those titles and in the pictures, you need to be able to convey a message so quickly that the brain registers that, oh, that's what I want. Otherwise, you're just another listing among 7.7 or 8 million listings. And that's not what we want. So we're looking for a unique selling point. So when you see something as part of a directory of available properties to rent for arbitrage, you're looking for that something special, okay? Or how can you create it into something special? Because you've literally got a couple of seconds to grab somebody's attention so that they book yours. We need to look at our booking as 365 days a year as our inventory, but it's diminishing inventory. So one night lost is a night that we've lost income for the rest of time. So you want to be selling it at the best rate as quickly as possible so that you can be working on the next deal. Sometimes people are trying too hard to hold on to a specific rate, and it's the wrong strategy, because you've got to look at the strategy as an annual overview. How much can I make for the year, not how much I can make for this month? And you've got to work the prices using that, and we'll use price metrics to be able to chat about that as we go along. You need to look at what is the average nightly rate and the annual yield. As I said, these are very, very important things. We've got to discuss how you get the finances together, how you're going to do the deposit and rent, and what are those terms. We've got to look at furnished or unfurnished. And then the most important part is taking action. Now, there is the financial side, which is that you need to get an LLC registered to protect yourself so that you act as a business, not in your personal capacity. That will help you with liability claims against you. In the USA specifically, it doesn't stop somebody suing you in your personal capacity. However, from a tax perspective, etc., we want to be able to do it through a company instead of our personal capacity, because we can run a lot of expenses through the company and keep down the growth or the income, so that our tax liability is less, and use that to get more properties, etc. And we use the debt from those kind of things to be able to also work with the getting more properties, and eventually to buying your own properties. That's where we want to get to at the end. So any questions from that so far?
With the LLC, that means, so when I run through everything on the LLC, I have to do the yearly tax with it. And then does a lot of times, do you pay a lot of taxes coming through this, or it just depends on your revenue?
It depends on your revenue, but you need to be tax efficient, not tax avoidant. So tax efficient means that you are using the LLC effectively to put through your expenses in it and using it to pay taxes. You don't need to pay unnecessary taxes. Okay. And so that means that there are certain allowances and things. Now, I'm not a tax expert in the USA market, but most taxes around the world work in similar types of ways. And so you will still need to contact an accountant in your country specifically, because obviously different people in this community are from different areas. So I'm just saying this as a disclaimer, that you will still need to consult a tax authoritative in your area, an accountant. And remember, remind them you want to be tax efficient, not tax avoidant. So the name of the game is to put it through an LLC and to run the income pretty much through a current liability, not necessarily as profit. Okay. And you can run the actual property as you are managing the property as opposed to it being your property in the income. And that will go along further in this course, etc. So that's the kind of overview of where we're at. Do you have any questions going forward so that we can then set the goals for our week, so that next week we can then start moving forward with the next parts?
No, I think that's it. Just maybe for the yearly. So if we're supposed to look at it yearly, when should a owner or a manager start seeing like profits, or is it going to be like a long-term game where you start seeing it after the first 6 months, or is it just depends on what location I choose and the system I put in place?
So those are good questions. So ultimately, you'll see a lot of courses advertising that from month one you get $10,000, blah 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 blah. But what they don't do is they don't take into account, and they're not transparent on the first parts, is that you need a deposit and you need upfront rent. And so those are technically the deposit is obviously just something that is going to come back to you, which is fine. It's not really an expense. It's a deposit and it gains interest, but it's still upfront cost. So when you say, are you from month one in the plus? Well, no, technically you've had to accumulate cash to put that into. Okay. But it also then again, there's also other factors to consider. Did you have to furnish it? Was it unfurnished? Now, if you have to furnish it, you can write off a lot of that furniture to tax as well. Depending on the laws of the country, it's up to 3 to 5 years, depending on your tax rebates and things. So we just need to figure that out for the state that you choose in those 3 areas, how you write off the depreciation. So those are all key factors that come into it. But can you make money from month one? It's possible. Would I like to guarantee it? Never. And if you think about, if I'm renting, so this current date is the 17th of April. Let's say we takes us 5, 10, 15 days to find a property. Then to put it onto all the OTAs. OTA stands for online travel agent, like Airbnb, etc. Will I get bookings straight away for May? It's possible, but is it realistic? That's what we have to look at, is realistic versus trying to create some sort of hypothetical idea and putting all of our time, energy, and expectations on that. Because like everything in life, we have to manage the expectations. So comfortably, you want to be able to have a month extra so that you can build up the marketing. Now, we're going to be talking about all the marketing and how to do it, because a lot of arbitration courses use the term that they do corporate lets. So they go to owners and they say to the owner, hi, I do corporate lets, and sometimes we rent it out on Airbnb, because they're trying to hide the fact that they're actually are doing arbitrage and they're renting out the owner's place on Airbnb. Instead, just switch the mindset and just tell the owner, because what they're misunderstanding is that an owner who is renting it out on long term is not wanting the hassle of doing short term. Otherwise, they would be doing it on short term themselves. They don't want the hassle. They just want their guaranteed money every single month. That's what they want. Okay, so you don't have to hide the fact that you're going to use their property as an arbitrage property to be able to get short-term rentals in. You can be straightforward and honest with them. At the end of the day, you can also explain to them very simply is that would you prefer to rent to a company that is getting money for the property and paying you consistently every single month, or would you prefer to take the chance of getting a long-term tenant who might lose their job and then you're stuck with them as a squatter because they don't have any income? Which one sounds better to you?
The company. Are you gonna have a script? Are you gonna have a script with it as well to help us? Or
I've got a script for you, everything. So we're going to walk through that, knowing that you can be 100% transparent about things, because I find a lot of these courses try and do smoke and mirrors, and it's not transparent, and it causes more frustration because one day the owner is on Airbnb and they go, oh, that's my property, hold on. Isn't so-and-so told me he's doing corporate rents, but he's now got my property on Airbnb? And it's misleading, right? But I promise you, the owners would rather work with a company that's going to pay them consistently, that they know that their money is going to come in, because it doesn't matter if they're making money off that. They know that income is being generated, and they don't want to hassle. So that's the beauty of this. Then from the marketing point of view, what we're going to need to do is then put together a website to show other properties that are being marketed. Now, if somebody says, like yourself, well, I don't have any properties that I'm marketing. This is my first one. It's simple to get properties, okay? So all you do is we create a template type of website management company, which we can buy on, for example, Theme Forest for $37. You can have it installed by an expert somewhere around the world, a virtual expert who does it for like another $50 or something like that. So you've got a fully capable, functioning property website for less than $100. Okay, and you can have it within 24 hours. Now you need to put properties on there. So all you do is you find other properties that are in the same area. You phone the management companies that are there and ask them if you can put their properties on your site. And they go, you say, well, why would they want to do that? It's simple, because if you sell their properties, you ask them if you can have a commission. Okay, so they say, yes, sure, you can have a commission, because everybody's in the business of commission. So you say, well, can I have a commission? They say, yes, you can. And you say, well, how much? They say 15, 20% or whatever it is. They give you commission. You ask them to send over all their properties and the information. You load it onto your website. And guess what? You've suddenly got a website full of properties that you are marketing. And so when you approach the owner to tell them about doing corporate lends and arbitrage, or doing arbitrage, etc., you've already got a website that already has properties on it that you are actively marketing. Whether you are arbitraging them or they're somebody else's and you're getting commission, it's irrelevant. The fact is that you are in the property industry and you are already showing that you have that under management, that you are already actively promoting properties. Make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. So that's the kind of journey that we're going on. All right. So the first part that we're going to do, usually some people like to do all the legal stuff first, which is getting LLCs and bank accounts and all these kind of things. But until we have an area to begin with, and before we have a location that we think is somewhere that we want to invest our time and energy, the rest doesn't need to be done yet. Okay? So for this call and going on to the next session is that we are going to be working with 3 areas, and those 3 areas are we're going to do our research on. All right. Have you got 3 areas in mind that you want to first put down?
I actually do. Do you want cities or states? Because I'm actually bounced from 3 different states, so and they're actually states that are. If I can go from one to 3, then I can put it on like a category from the best. Because now that you mentioned the beaches and the tourism and stuff like that, I'm able to put it on the scale to best to worst idea in a way.
So, for example, also just going back, you said, for example, resorts. Now, in 2018, my daughter and I traveled around the world for 9 months, and we went to Florida for a month. And I've been to Disneyland before, but obviously wanted to take my daughter. And we hired a hire car, and off we went and toured around the whole of Florida for that month. And we went to Disneyland, and it wasn't as busy as I thought it would be, because my memories of it was packed. So when you said to me that resorts, they have all theme parks and those kind of things, we just need to check the numbers on those if you have those in your 3 cities. And I'm just mentioning this because other community members might be, oh, I'm going to do Disneyland. There were a lot of properties available in Disneyland, and there was a high competition. So ultimately, we just need to check on those particular things. So 3 states, you've got 3 states. Now, in those 3 states, have you got maybe three cities or 2 cities? How does it work in the US that you feel it's going to narrow your search down to make it easier for you?
I think I'm going to have more cities. So it goes number 1, Florida, number 2, Colorado, and then number 3, Texas. If I put it on a scale from what would make the most sense down to the tourism levels.
And are those laws based on the state or based on the cities?
The city. So I believe the city has different, even like with small businesses, the same thing, because, we used to do a lot of different consulting and different small business stuff. So every city has its own rule. So for example, the city, for example, Denver, the city of Denver has its own rule, and then the city of Aurora has its own rule. Or if you go to like Florida, right, there's you have multiple cities, Boca Raton, you have Hollywood, Florida, you have Miami. So it's gonna give you different rules and regulations. Like Fort Lauderdale, for example, they're way more strict than Miami. So it depends.
All right, great. So now let's choose 3 cities. Choose 1 state. Choose 3 cities.
Okay, if I choose 1 state, I would choose Florida for sure. And then,
okay, so we go Florida, and we're choosing 3 cities in Florida, and you're going to choose to find out if legislation allows for short-term rentals. If you find all 3 don't allow for, choose another 3. Okay, and that's the process. We're trying to get to having 3 that do. So not 2 that don't and 1 that does. We're looking for 3 that do, because we need to then find out the competition, the tourism effect, how much money can be made. We need results based on deep search so that we have data. We've got to make data-driven decisions, if that makes sense.
Okay. Did you want me to do my own research to find the legislation, or is there going to be like a template that gives us a certain website that we check it through? Did you want me to figure it out?
So you need to do your own research. I'm going to give you a sheet that, as I said, I got it complimentary from a company called HostEasy, that they did some research on it. I can't, because I live in Portugal, for example, I can't guarantee that list is 100% accurate. I can only just give it to you as information, as part of tools that you can access. But ultimately, remember, the mindset is that this is your business. And so as it being your business, it has to be your concern and your responsibility. And so that all the way through this, and I'm just saying this to everybody watching this, okay? All the way through this, you're doing this because you want to be successful in the property industry. So don't take shortcuts relying on third-party information. You have to do the research regardless. You've got to take control, take responsibility, and say, right, I want to do this because I want to get ahead in my life. I want to do it because I want to help the people around me. Whatever your personal journey is, this is for you and your future. So don't take any shortcuts, because they will bite you in the ass. And then you can't come back to me, as I'm saying to you, and say, but Bryn, you told me this area was fine. I'll be like, what? That's not taking responsibility of your research. So you still have to do your research. Now, all states, all governments around the world, all provinces, you name it, will have websites where they publish the laws. So I suggest you, in your case, and it would be great feedback for other people on this arbitrage course, Z, on our next call for us to discuss how you found those, so that you can help others as well to find those laws. It would be great. So please, as you're going along, please can you document it so that you can share it with other people on this journey as well. Again, it's not your responsibility, it's theirs, but let's help each other out. That's what this community is about.
Of course, yeah, of course. But now with technology and everything is accessible from this. So this can make us rich. So that's but I'll definitely help, because we all need, we all need to get to a level we need to go. But got to put in the work too. It doesn't come easy in any business.
Otherwise, everybody would be doing it.
No, I agree 1,000%. That's if you have that mentality, you have to have that business owner mentality. So just switch it over. You have to. Yeah, that's my best advice, really, coming from different businesses. You just have to switch to a different kind of owner mentality, boss mentality to handle things the way you need to handle it. So I just wanted to mention that.
That's beautiful, and I thank you for sharing with everybody. I think that's an important and valid point that people need to take consideration of. So for our next call, what is our actionable and accountable results that we're looking for?
Okay, so I'm gonna basically look at 3 cities in the same state, and I'm just gonna find out the legislation of each, and basically, so question actually, what if I find 3 cities, and then 2 of them everything looks good and 1 of them is bad? Do I just find another city, or do I find all 3 cities that have the clear legislation?
We want 3 cities that have clear legislation. The reason why is that we need to research in those cities which ones are going to be viable choices to go. Because you might find one, but by the time you've done the calculations of how much it's going to cost you for rent and all those kind of pieces, and it doesn't work out, then you're back to square one and you've got nothing to go to next. So we want to find, while we're doing this first layer, if we can call it that, which is a very important layer, we might as well find 3 that are potentials. And then we move on to the next stage after that.
Okay, for sure. I'll definitely do that. And then I'll just be looking at different zip codes, and I'll screenshot, I'll screen record stuff, whatever I find, and we can go from there.
Awesome. Beautiful people. Z, the man, and thank you very much. And we'll see you on the next call as we build you and your property empire. Here we go.
Awesome.
Thanks, Z.
Thank you. Have a good day.